Well, good morning, everybody. As I was getting prepared for today's briefing, I was thinking a lot about cloud cover because early in the season, of course, as the soil temperatures come up, we get a crop trying to get going. We need to have that good early season sunshine. And I was just thinking back over the last 30 days, so from March 25th to April 24th, here on cumulative downward solar flux anomalies. And what that means is this is how much of the sun's light really gets down to the surface. So what I want you to notice out of this is that there's this stretch from kind of California, clips part of the plains, comes up here into parts of New England, and then we can kind of capture the rest of that pattern right through there, where we have this region of the United States that has seen quite a bit of sunshine. You go into the Northwest, you go into the Northern Plains, you come down here along the Gulf Coast, and especially throughout parts of the Canadian Prairie into Ontario and Quebec, we've had a tremendous amount of cloud cover, and it's really robbed us of seeing the sun very much as of late. So what's important about this map is where we expect to see some changes in it. But before I show you that, I want to at least relate this to another map, which is the last 30 days of precipitation. So now we start to see those areas that have been drier, okay, and they kind of line up nicely with the areas that have just seen some more sunshine. So it's kind of an interesting, trade-off with the way the atmosphere works. Now, what are some of the big changes? Biggest changes are going to be happening right here in this part of the plains. Also, we're going to continue to work on eating away the drought problems that are in parts of the mid-Atlantic right in through here, back to the Appalachian Mountains. And the way this new pattern is setting up, the next 10 days is going to favor something like this. Now, we have a large area of drier conditions in through here. And that's a big spot in the middle of our corn and soybean belt, part of the wheat belt. I mean, this is a huge agriculture productive area that I kind of drew this around. And we note, and we've been discussing this quite a bit, that there's a lot of cold air at the beginning of this, but we need to assess where the frost is going to be. And even though it's cold, are we going to take advantage of this window that's opening here? But we have two systems that are actually going to try to come through. The first one today and tomorrow, coming through this part of the plains. And we're going to watch these systems and subsequent ones kind of wrap themselves up here, over the Great Lakes and just deliver what could be quite a bit of precipitation through this corridor and through here. We do have a severe weather threat on this as well. On the southern side of it, I'm going to be watching Texas very carefully, but the west is going to open up to a lot of warmth. And it won't be until about 8 or 9 days from now that we start to see the risk of some cooler conditions coming back into California. Not cold, but some cooler conditions. Now, watching the radar animation over the last 6 hours, we have two systems we're keeping an eye on. There was some scattered showers that moved through parts of Iowa, Illinois, southern Wisconsin this morning. In fact, it's raining where I am right now early this morning in Champaign. And we can see the first rounds of rain that are moving out ahead of this low that's spinning right here, coming into Colorado later on this afternoon. This also captures the leftovers of some of the big storms we saw in Florida yesterday. Some of those were hail producers with some strong winds. So our all hazards weather map kind of points to a couple of important things. We've got the winter storm warnings that are stretching here with the current system. This is going to include parts of the front range of the Rockies and Colorado, and I'll show you where we've got that snow coming in a few moments. We have the cold morning still sitting here over parts of the eastern Corn Belt butting up against the Appalachian Mountains. We have the flood warnings that are still in our major river systems in the central U.S. We're going to be watching with the melt going on in the west what the flood situation could be here as the temperatures really begin to climb. But I want to talk about that precip first, because picking this up at 8 o'clock this morning here on the high-res NAM, we see the showers moving through the eastern Corn Belt. We see scattered showers over the southeast, but our broadest shield of precipitation is hitting some of the driest areas in the country in the last year. And so this moisture coming in through here is just incredible. And we see snow, the front range, rain throughout the day today, and then the risk this evening as we go into the overnight hours for strong to severe storms on the southern side of it. I'll show you exactly where in a few moments. But this carries into Wednesday morning. We could be bringing some of that snow into southeastern Colorado, but you notice right in through here, this is the broader shield of precipitation. It will likely have a very sharp northern edge to it as to where we expect the rain to get. As we play through the Wednesday midday time frame, getting into the overnight hours, into early Thursday, we're going to have a lot of concern about the risk of damaging winds and hail here. There's also a tornado risk on the northern side of this, north of Dallas, as the storm system keeps moving through Wednesday night, here it is again, into Thursday. All right. Now to show you that severe weather threat, this is what I've got. There we go. On today, so we're watching central Texas primarily for the risk of these strong to severe storms on the southern edge of this system coming out of Colorado. And then tomorrow, as it progresses, we now see the the Storm Prediction Center upgrading to an enhanced risk in this area. Again, I think mostly straight line wind damage and hail damage here. But here's the bigger picture. We see that there's a corridor, and remember I put a hard contour line right here representing 1.5 inches. So there's two contour lines, a 1/2 inch, that's this one, and 1.5 inches, which is here. And what we see is that there's a broad area in through here that's going to be receiving quite a bit of rainfall. And as we've been discussing, it's going to hit drought areas here and the drought areas we've been seeing in parts of the mid-Atlantic. It's also going to get the southeast another big drink of water. So we've noticed here in the last 24 hours or so that the GFS solution has come more closely in line with the European. So I want to just show you, one central forecast here from the European model. So again, we've already seen system number 1. This is the one that's pulling through Colorado today, possibly some snow here, sliding into the southern plains, setting up the severe weather risk today and tomorrow in Texas, and then watch it move across the south. Now, while that's happening, there is a ridge building in the west, and another system sneaks down the spine of the Rockies here. See it? So this particular system, though, given that it's on the back side of this one, is a bit starved for moisture. It does bring more snow into the Rockies here, but we're going to watch these two systems interact. One goes over to the east by Friday, dumping rain. Virginia, Carolinas, down to Georgia, Florida, also here up into parts of the eastern Corn Belt, getting into Pennsylvania. And the system behind it, this is on the 28th. You see how it sneaks down, sets up again on the Red River Valley of the South. So one is moving here. And then we're going to watch another wave that's coming here over the Red River Valley of the North. And it's going to set up over the Great Lakes. This is kind of a bit of a complicated pattern because these two troughs, one here and here, are going to interact late this weekend. And what you see is that by Sunday midday, there's a low that's pushing through the south. There's a broader upper level trough sitting over the Great Lakes. And yep, this is the one we're going to talk about for delivering the next round of colder air. And then they work together almost like it kind of looks like a bit like a Fujiwara effect where one low with the peripheral low pulls the other one out ahead of it like this, and they kind of orbit one another. But it's another round of very heavy rain for the southeast up into the Carolinas. I'm rocking back and forth here on Sunday night into Monday morning, okay? And then that system hits New England. Now, behind this, remember the 30th, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That's when I'm worried about the next shot at some colder air sliding out of the Canadian prairie through the plains and hitting a lot of the central United States. The West is warm during this entire time period. But since we're talking about precip first, let's take a look here. This is the probability over the next 10 days of getting at least 1 inch. And you notice if you've been watching the videos this week, this map has not changed too much. What has changed is some of the precip totals on the high side. We now see a much higher probability in Oklahoma of getting 2 inches. Southeast has come up, and a big section here of New England, getting back to the eastern Corn Belt, is looking quite wet out of this as well. Primarily, I'm talking about Ohio. All right. From here, I want to show you the snow side of this. We're going to watch the spine of the Rockies for these next two systems. So that's system number 1. Could we see 4 or 5 inches of wet snow out here? It is possible. How much in the mountains? Maybe up to 1 foot in places. Then round 2 comes, remember, later in the week on Thursday, Friday. See it there? Kind of hits the same areas. So we're watching for quite a bit of late season snowpack building up here. And that just reminds me, when we think about the upper Colorado Basin, we're still way above our averages here. We're at 155% of normal snowpack in the upper Colorado Basin. Huge snowpack late in the season, and we're about to add a bit more to it. So this line's probably going to go sideways rather than down. Now, in the upper Midwest, we have to watch for more snow as well because that second system, there it is, we're all the way out to Thursday. Watch Thursday into Friday, and then remember, the second one this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Snow showers are possible pretty far to the north here. And you notice that here in this part of Minnesota, getting in Ontario, possibly some very heavy snow. 2, 3, 4 inches here, and then well over 1 foot in parts of Ontario being forecast at this point. Now, to translate this into a longer-term forecast and then a discussion on temperatures, we got to watch the upper level height pattern. Blues represent the troughs. The ridges are in red. Now, we know a sizable ridge is building into the west. And we talked about this last night. The pattern gets highly amplified. It gets stuck a bit because of this omega block right there. Okay, and it almost fits the criteria of a block because it might be around for about 10 days. So that means it's going to take a while to push this whole pattern out, meaning that we're going to see cooler weather to finish April here and begin the month of May. But we're going to talk about when that transitions here in a moment. When do we start to see some cooler conditions showing up in the west? It may not be until May 2nd into maybe May 1st, 2nd, 3rd. And it's interesting. Can you keep your eye right here? As I go back, look at the origins of this trough. It has a piece here in British Columbia, but you're going to notice, I think we're getting a response to the still very cold ocean temperatures helping to deepen this. And that's going to take this ridge, which spent most of the next week plus sitting here, it's going to move it. And it's going to keep moving. And as it moves, it's going to start to open up warmth back in the mid part of the country. And we're going to end up shoving this trough, which has been so cold, by about May 5th, 6th out. And the pattern's going to open itself up to where we end up getting flow that's a bit more like this. And that setup is one where we could expect to see storms. They're going to start west and move east, and it's one that's going to start to deliver some much more mild air. Let's look at the week 2 precipitation pattern from all three of our sources. So CPC, ECMWF, US model, GFS. And they've all got this wetter pattern in this area for week 2. So the drier, cooler air is exiting. See it in all three models? The more active pattern is moving in. Now remember, to be above average in terms of precip in California in May, it's not like it's soaking wet. It's not like March or January of this year. So I want to be sure we understand with that. Okay, temperatures quickly, and then we'll wrap this up. This is what things look like at 6 a.m. this morning. We had, of course, our frost line sitting right in through here, but this hit a lot of Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and parts of New York with some sub-freezing temperatures this morning. To show you where these high temperatures are going this week, let's start off with today's highs here and play into Wednesday. Watch the heat build in the west 90s in the Central Valley of California. Cold air right here. This is where we're concerned about the snow and the cold rain coming through. So this is Wednesday into Thursday, getting out there toward Friday. Heat big time building in the west. A lot of 90s in the I-5 corridor here. Really quite amazing to see that transition. Saturday, getting into Sunday, another cold one, but not nearly as cold as last weekend. We were in the 40s throughout a big section here last weekend, and now we see these temperatures about 10, 12 degrees warmer than that. Monday, remember, we're going to start watching after the 1st for this to move out. So based upon this, I'd like to show you where we're going to sit over the next 7 days in terms of accumulating heat units, growing degree day units. Again, these numbers are quite small for what they could be this time of year in this area that I'm circling here. But way out west, I mean, of course, this is the desert, but holy smokes, we're really getting some high numbers here given the heat that's coming into the west. I created a new diagram for you this morning, or a new map this morning. I upgraded some of the software that I was running for frost. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you in gray frost extent every 6 hours because I want to see where it's coming in. So this was this morning. We're already aware of what's going on there. But let's get to tomorrow morning right here. That's Wednesday morning. So we're keeping an eye on this region and through here, and of course where the colder air is over the Rocky Mountains. This is now getting into Thursday morning. Let's go out until Friday morning. Let's go out until Saturday morning. Now remember, once we get out to the 30th right here, that is Sunday, I want to watch for the extent of the colder air coming around this second low that's going to wrap up over the Great Lakes. So here we go. This is now Monday morning right here. That's the 1st. And Tuesday morning, there it is. And getting out here toward Wednesday, Wednesday morning. Now, notice we didn't see it penetrating as deep as we had seen previously, but there's still some chilly air that's coming in here. And I want to show you again some of the tools I built. So I'm going to pick, here we go, Albert Lee. There we go. Let's go to Albert Lee, Minnesota. This is right on the southern edge of Minnesota. Remember, these tools are there. So next 7 days, 6 degrees colder than normal. That's some fun stats I have up here at the top, But if you come down to the bottom, remember, in Albert Lee, it is still common to have our last frost. In fact, our most frequent last frost date is actually May 1st, all right? So it's common to have cold air still in place then. And what we're going to be watching is this. Okay, buildup of a little bit of warmth over the next few days, getting us out to Friday. Then we have the cooler conditions coming in the weekend, and now we're back in the frost zone. This is when I think we're going to start to finally build past this. After May 3rd, warmth returns, pattern opens up, and spring comes on. That's kind of the big idea. And that is echoed right here. This is a 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies, and the heat's in the west for much of the next 5 to 8 days. Once we get out there to day 5 through 10, can you see the cooler conditions starting to come in? Watch this warmth translate east. So this is now going out there to day 10 through 15. And that's when we start to really see the heat coming in. So if the crop is established, it's going to use this heat, jump out of the ground and get going. I'm very excited to watch the GDD maps as we go forward through this time period. All right, last couple things just to discuss quickly. I skimmed over this last night. I want to make sure we see it again. This is the newest data from May 5th to June 5th on precipitation. Look at the plains. Look at the south. Look at the Midwest all the way to New England. That's a lot of wet signal in here, which is why we need to continue throughout the next several weeks and months, actually, talking about this El Nino transition and what it could be doing to the jet stream pattern. And the last things, I just want to make sure that you're aware that over the next 10 days, especially over this week, we have extreme heat coming into the Iberian Peninsula here, maybe over 100 Fahrenheit in southern Spain, over 40 C. And look at the heat in Kazakhstan and parts of Russia as well. Some places here well in excess of 20 degrees above average, while Central Europe is cold. And finally, just remember South America is transitioning toward its dry season. That's what happens in May. The monsoon ends. So we've seen decent moisture here, highest NDVI values on the last 20 years in this area. Still some more storms in southern Brazil, hitting Rio Grande do Sul, but the Paraná River is dry. And remember, Rio Grande do Sul is one of our drought states in Brazil. Okay, that's it for this morning. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.